Welcome, children of the night, back to another edition of the Infernal Archive. On this spooktacular episode, we're watching a little movie by the name of Funny Games. It's a movie that came out in 2007. It stars Naomi Watts, who I'm actually really very partial to because of Peter Jackson's King Kong film. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a Peter Jackson film, I'm immediately a big fan. Tim Roth's in the movie too.
Oh, great. I love Tim Roth.
Yeah, he played if you're a fan of like older, those British comedy films, you'll know who Tim Roth is.
Tarantino.
Or Tarantino. Yeah, right. Tarantino.
I love you, honey bunny.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery!
He also played the Abomination in 2008's The Incredible Hulk movie, if you saw that. I'm just going to read a quick little Wikipedia blurb here for you, but a spooky Wikipedia blurb. Funny Games is a 2007 psychological horror film written and directed by Michael Haneke and is a remake of his own 1997 film that has the same title. And I was reading a little bit about it, and it's interesting. Apparently it's like shot for shot. So it's kind of like the Psycho remake.
Psycho remake, yeah.
But this was the same guy remaking his own movie, but now instead of being set in the UK, it's set in the United States, which is...
Oh, that's kind of interesting, and also like more modern, I guess, slightly.
Yeah. And the director said that he intended the film to be a criticism of how violence is portrayed in the media, and that's sort of the general gist of it. Yeah, I don't really know too much about this. I was kind of talking to you before. I haven't, like, I enjoy home invasion movies. I'll say this, like Amy, my girlfriend, hands down, it's the genre that she finds the most frightening, because it's like she always puts herself in those shoes and she's like, this is a nightmare scenario. I couldn't do this. I do think that if, like, I was broken into in Vancouver twice, one time while I was sleeping and the people came and stole my shit, and I did feel like super violated and stuff, but I won't say it's like there's no fear in me. I'm never scared of like a home invasion.
Yeah, it's more just like uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I wouldn't describe it as fear either. Yeah I guess that's whatever our own, I think it's a male thing, kind of. You kind of expect yourself / feel capable enough to do something about it, maybe.
Yeah.
What the? Oh no! They're coming in through the back door!
Even if that's somewhat diluted, you have that in your back of your mind.
And even like, I think there's an attitude too that it's like, you feel like if people were to come to my house in the with the intent to invade, if they saw me, they would be like, I don't. Like, whereas like maybe if there's a small woman by herself, they'd be like, well let's just bust in there and whatever. We can overpower her. They might think twice if there's a guy in there. So yeah, it's not something that when I'm watching them, I ever really, the idea of it frightens me. But I have enjoyed a lot of them. I was saying The Strangers I thought was really good, and it had a lot of like good jump scares and like spooky imagery and stuff. But yeah, I read online this movie's supposed to be really good, and I mean it got made twice, so not a lot of movies get made twice.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we'll check it out, and then we will catch you after we're done watching the movie to give you our thoughts. Thank you so much.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
Welcome back, boils and ghouls. Sorry, Crypt Keeper, if that's like your trademark thing.
Well, see you next time, boys and ghouls.
Children of the Night, let's say. Welcome back, Children of the Night. So we just finished Funny Games, and I'm
so conflicted.
Yeah, how to describe this movie? So, I would say, for the most part, 85% of this film is a home invasion horror film,
and a very interesting, well thought out.
Yeah.
The cinematography was intriguing and interesting, and served the story.
Yeah.
The score, or should I say, almost entire lack of score, really fit the mood and created a really strong atmosphere. Mm-hmm. It has all these things working for it until like the last 20 minutes, 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
And then I don't understand the choice that was made there.
Yeah, this movie was doing so many things well. I kind of said at the beginning in the intro that it's like I haven't really seen a lot of home invasion movies that have scared me. or have like affected me enough that I've been like, oh, I really enjoyed that. But the filmmaking in this movie was so confident and strong that even though it was like, I mean, it was a little less like your traditional home invasion movie. The villains in this film are pretty quirky. Like they're a little more like a fictional villain, like something out of like a Stephen King novel, or like they're kind of like Children of Corny, like they're monotone. They're like blue-eyed, blonde-haired, young, pretty like emotionless. So like kind of a weird vibe, like not like people don't actually exist like that.
Hyper-fixated on politeness too.
I guess like kind of like Dahmery, like.
No, it isn't. It doesn't even smell in here. Take back the complaint. I made you a sandwich.
Kind of that type of vibe, but not as whatever. They had their own thing going on. But it was super interesting what they were doing with like the camera work and how they were telling the story at the beginning. Is large sections of this movie they'll have the camera on a tripod and then they'll lock it off, and then all that'll happen is the camera will occasionally move back and forth to follow characters.
That's it.
You'll go on 5 to 10 minutes with just that movement, and a lot of action will happen. And there are whole dialogue sequences where some of the actors will have their backs turned to the camera for minutes,
or just close-ups.
Yeah,
close-ups of like not faces. Like when they get into the summer home, I guess it is, and they're like unpacking and stuff, and they're having the conversation through the house, but it's like close-ups of putting things away, setting the golf clubs down, taking shoes off, putting groceries away, but they're having the conversation. Yeah, and it was really interesting and effective, I think.
Yeah, the filmmaker wasn't afraid to not show us faces and expressions
when it wasn't necessary.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like the filmmaking itself was so strong and interesting, and like, I don't know if innovative is the word, but different. Like not just like pulling out all the old tricks and stuff. Like very much like, this is my vision and I'm gonna go for it. And
very non-conventional.
Yeah, and totally works. Totally worked. Like wasn't weird or like didn't feel fucking stupid or whatever.
Like you noticed it, but it was in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Like so I'll say that it's like the dialogue itself, like all the writing was really strong. Like the tension of this film all came through dialogue. It was just like
all dialogue. Yeah,
they would put basically it's a family that's getting invaded by these two Aryan-looking motherfuckers, and the whole movie is just like these dialogue scenes between the family and these two, and all the tension comes from like the weird things they say and the weird requests they have of the family, because it's like the title of the film is Funny Games, and there's not like overt games, but there's these weird little things. Like he tells Naomi Watson scene, is like, I want you to say a prayer for me, and like
if you say the prayer with exactly right, you get to decide what happens next.
Yeah, it's like stuff like that. So little things like that. And then they also had random little rules that the family would break, and then it's like, oh, you shouldn't have broke that rule or whatever. And that's the thing is like I found it I really liked the villains. I thought they were actually, I'll just say this about the performances in general. Tim Roth and Naomi Watts and their kid, the boy actor, he didn't have a lot of dialogue or anything, but they
sold it.
Yeah, like super emotive. Like when they were scared and terrified and crying, and like it's so good. Like very much reminding me of like Hereditary, and not quite as intense, but if you've seen Hereditary and you've seen Midsommar, there's scenes in those movies where it's just fucking raw grief emotion coming out, and it's just really uncomfortable to watch. And there is a moment in this movie that is like that grief coming through, and like it's rough to watch, and you have to watch somebody like be in shock,
and there's no score, there's no camera movement, it is just a stationary camera
for minutes
on this room where there's like the aftermath of violence and the people grieving. It was fucking heavy.
It's like very chilling. And I'll say this, like I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying the film when it was doing this home invasion thing and the family and the performances and all this stuff. But then, like, I don't want to spoil this about the movie too much, but it's kind of impossible to not talk about. The film starts breaking the fourth wall. And at first, I thought it was a clever way of indicating that the one villain is mentally ill by like he's hearing voices, or he has an audience that he perceives that like the family doesn't perceive.
And it starts out really subtle too. Like, it was the first one we're like, was that a fourth wall break? We're like, no, I don't know. He looked past the camera. And the second one, it was like, oh no, that was a direct, spike the camera, fourth wall break.
Speaks to the audience.
Yeah.
Speaks directly to you. And then
was the third one that he did where he actually now he's referencing like plot. And,
the film itself. Like he says like, don't, like he looks right at, like, so the first one, he kind of looks past the camera and you're like, did he look at the camera? Did he look at us? Okay, that was interesting. Mm-hmm. Then the second one, again, he like sort of asks a question to the audience, but it still feels like, oh, this could be a schizophrenic guy who's just nuts. But then the third one, he's directly referencing that he's in a movie and that this is a plot and like.
Do you think it's enough? I mean, you want a real ending, right? With plausible plot development, don't you?
He says to the audience, like, don't you want a satisfying conclusion where it's like there's an attempt or something like that along those lines?
Yeah.
And then the film for sure changes because then you know that it's, okay, this is not...
They're not trying to be a home invasion movie with a little spin.
Yeah.
It's... There's a point they're trying to make here. There's a thing they're trying to do outside of just a conventional plot.
Yeah. And I gotta say, for me, the fourth wall break, because by the end, the two villains, like you're kind of like overhearing them. You don't hear the conversation very clearly because they're like in a sailboat and it's windy and stuff, but they're talking about like different worlds and
it's like a science fiction plot.
Like
somehow relates to both of them. And both like understand
what is reality, what is not, and it's like you don't get enough that you can even like understand what is going on specifically. And I gotta say, like it didn't float my boat. The movie had great atmosphere and it had good horror vibes, and like I said, I don't usually like these movies. I don't find them super scary or anything, but I was like, man, this is like giving me at least the like sick to my stomach, like, oh, this is so terrible, like kind of that more hereditary this sort of vibe a little bit. And then when it started getting really weird at the end, and I guess there's a moment in the film basically when there's actually two moments in the film, but it's like kind of all hope is lost moments. And the first one happens, and you're like, oh, fuck, like, oh, God, like, now this movie has to get me reinvested again, because, like, now I've kind of, like, oh, shit, I've lost or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that happens, but then they do manage to get you invested again, which is super interesting, but then there's another hopeless moment, and then the second hopeless moment is like, oh, it's very hopeless.
And it also, like, diverges from... Like, it seems like very out of nowhere, the second hopeless moment.
Yeah.
It comes in and it's like, but like, did we establish that this was a thing that could even happen?
Yeah.
And for me, that's where I wasn't totally out. Like, I still overall, I would say, enjoyed this film.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it leaves me really wondering. And I think you said it before we started filming, but all the other choices in that film felt so calculated and confident.
Mm-hmm.
And then that one very unconventional, like, break the fourth wall kind of through line seemed very, like, not very explained and very out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And didn't really fit with everything else that was so standout about the film.
And I was kind of saying this before when we were chatting, like, a problem I have with, like, a lot of horror films is that they're over-explained, and I like my horror movies to have some mystery. I want to think about what's happening. I want to, like, it's the whole thing about, like, what you concoct in your mind is sometimes way more frightening than what they can present to you on screen and whatever, and I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because, like, in contrast, no, that's not true. You do see violence once, overt violence in this film, but anytime somebody gets hurt or killed or whatever, it happens off screen or like off camera, like off camera, like whatever. And it's actually interesting. The only time you see overt violence, it's one of the protagonists, or I shouldn't say protagonists because I don't really know who are the protagonists in this film, but one of the good guys, the not bad people, committing violence against one of the bad guys. That's the only time you actually see, like, overt violence.
Yeah,
which is interesting. So it subverts tropes that way, which is interesting. But anyways, like back to what Andrew was saying, it kind of fully lost me. I, like you said, when that big fourth wall break happens, I was intrigued enough that I'm like, oh, I wonder where this is gonna go. Like, oh, maybe this is gonna be like a brilliant ending that's like they make this work somehow. But to me, it was like that moment happened, and then I didn't get the next scene that made the big fourth wall break worthwhile to me. Then the film just kind of ended the way that I thought it was going to end. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing. It's like at the beginning, you kind of guess there's some weirdness at the beginning, and you're like, oh, and then when you kind of figure out what's going on, you're like, oh, that's what must have happened to these people.
Yeah, my only it doesn't really excuse it. The only thing I can think of now that we're, talking about it, is they're kind of like subverting convention throughout the film really subtly. And then eventually when there's that like big fourth wall moment and like convention is broken, it's almost like they're really like shoving your face in the fact that, oh, like you thought it was this way? Nah, it's not that way. And really making a point of it. And they're obviously, we're doing that not for story reasons, but to make the bigger point that the movie's trying to make, whatever you want to say that is, but whatever the subtext is, So I get it. I agree. It didn't. It's not that it didn't work exactly. It just it felt less interesting than what was happening.
Yeah, and that's, I would say, like, it didn't work in that case. Like,
yeah, true.
The problem, that's the thing, is like, I think if you're gonna pull a bait and switch like that type deal,
it has to be way more explained. Yeah.
Or it's like you got to do it in a way that by the end the audience is like, wow, that was really
intriguing.
Well done. Like that really, like, good work. But it's like, for me, it was like, it felt like you wrote a script and then you chose 3 random scenes in your script. You wrote like a traditional horror invasion script, and you had like a great through line, good beginning, good ending, all this stuff, great dialogue and all this stuff. And then it was like, ooh, but what if it was like a little weird, and I put this weird scene in.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the original like script and ending for Dodgeball. Like that. Like, for those of us that have seen it, because everyone should have. It's fucking Dodgeball. It's amazing. But it was supposed to end with like Ben Stiller's like Dwight Goodman winning.
Oh my! Globo Jim wins a Cinderella story cast asunder. Average Joe's has come all this way for nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're not going to get anything, Cotton.
And then that's the end. Like, when there's no double fault in the whole like blindfold and whatever.
Yeah.
It was just Average Joe's lose.
Yes.
And that was the end of the movie, basically.
Yeah. Supposed to subvert.
And like, that wasn't good. That wasn't a compelling ending. Thank God they switched it.
Yeah.
But it feels kind of like that. This movie kind of feels like that, where it's like, I want to shoehorn in this weirdness. It's like, why? Because it's weird and edgy. And
then the thing is, like, it was funny when the film ended. I fast forwarded through all the credits,
expecting something,
because I was like, there's no way you can't be this overt about fourth wall break, and then that's how you end the movie. You can't end the movie like the movie was gonna end anyways. Like, this is the ending I expected. Why are you giving me the ending I already knew was gonna happen? Like, how can you do something that, like, seemingly it seems like you want to be innovative, and then you don't be innovative. Like,
you don't do anything.
Yeah, it was so weird. That's the thing. It's like, and it's so conflicted, because like the home invasion part of the story and the movie, I think, is really well done, and I think the filmmaking is really well done, and I think it's scary and it's chilling and it fits the horror vibe. And like I spoke in the first episode about like these rules of horror I have. I think for the most part it follows these rules. But the problem is, like, the movie, it has such steam, and then when it gets to this section, like, you lose your steam for a second, then you get your steam back, but then they lose the steam again, and then they don't bring the steam back, and then it's like, okay, I guess, like, you're wanting me to, like, enjoy your film not based on the really intriguing home invasion plot you
already set up and have done well to this point.
Yeah, it's like you want me to think about this new thing, I guess, this quirky thing that you're trying to do.
You want to be really us to really think about like convention in filmmaking and the genre specific conventions that exist. And
the problem is, like, the thing is, like, compare this film to another horror movie that breaks conventions, Cabin in the Woods, where it's like, I think that movie's so successful because, like, it follows every fucking convention. It is very overt about, look at how we're carbon copying every horror movie, and then when it subverts the expectations, you're like, oh, this isn't the movie I thought it was going to be, and then then you can get on board because the whole film feels like it has
Dale
this
versus Evil.
Yeah, or there's another one I was thinking of, but I can't fucking remember what it is. Or the Scream movies to a degree do this, but like this film, it already is breaking convention in so many ways. With
so
filmmaking,
effectively.
Yeah, like it's not telling the story like most people would tell the story. So you're already like, that's the thing. It's so weird that you're breaking conventions in ways that are really interesting and that I really enjoyed, especially as like somebody like us who work in the industry and like who make narrative stuff sometimes. That was really cool to see. But then it's like you're like, but like now we're breaking convention. It's like you were already breaking conventions in like a whole bunch of ways. Like I don't like. This feels so separate. Like on the baseline, the meta felt great. Like at the beginning of the film and as it progressed, I loved the meta. But then you added another meta, and then it was like I don't know if this overarching meta feels satisfying, or I'm not getting anything out of it really. And so that's the thing, is like I can't really say I love this movie because of that weird interjection they threw on us. But I loved so much about the movie, and I honestly think if you cut out that scene,
it would be
I would
amazing.
like it better. Yeah.
Overall, I feel like exactly the same way. Really, it's the first half of this movie. I was like, wow, we got another like 3 for 3, baby.
Yeah.
Like, wow, another really good one. I still think it's pretty decent, but that one decision just kind of doesn't ruin the whole movie, but it just, I feel like it will be much better without it.
Yeah, I agree. Not to say that it couldn't have been built into something intriguing. Like I
didn't do that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like it's just like it's not that I was. Yeah, like we said, we weren't immediately off board, but you didn't justify. It felt like you didn't justify this crazy decision they made, and so like it's rough. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like you tried to be Black Mirror for 4 seconds, and then you didn't do anything with the Black Mirror stuff. I don't know. It was weird. So yeah, I don't know if I can fully recommend this movie to anybody. It's just not enough of like the package isn't cohesive enough for me to be like, you'll definitely enjoy sitting down and watching this. I don't know who I would recommend this to. I don't regret seeing it.
No.
But I don't know if I'd ever be like, yeah, you should for sure watch Funny Games. Like
if you're really into the subgenre of the home invasion movie.
Yep.
I would say watch it just because it subverts a lot of those conventions that you're used to, and the concept and the acting and the writing and the cinematography are all top notch, I would say. So if you can kind of want to watch it to appreciate those things, definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's kind of probably all we have to say about that movie. One thing I forgot to do in the first 2 episodes that I'd like to address now, if I can, I'll shout out where you can watch these movies. So No One Will Save You is available on Disney Plus. That was the Alien movie we watched in the first episode. And then Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that's actually free to watch. You can watch that on Tubi and on Plex for free. Probably just easier to watch it on Tubi. But anyway, so that's where you can see those movies. And then because I wasn't prepared, on the next episode I'll tell you if you're interested in seeing what's this movie called? Funny Games. I'll shout out where you can see it. Thank you so much.
I can tell you right now where you can see it. We're going to wait for 2 seconds.
We're going to look on the old...
Great app you should get. It's called Just Watch, and it tells you where you can buy or find. Oh, you can't buy it or stream it anywhere. So that's not a good sign. I'll do some internet scraping. Maybe I can come up with something, but yeah, it seems like it's a hard movie to track down. Yeah.
Anyways, so I don't know. Maybe
at least don't bother.
Yeah, at least it's not like this. You need to see this movie.
No, it's kind of a don't bother one for sure.
Well, we're gonna do our little roulette wheel here, and then we will end off the episode.
Yes, I almost forgot about that.
There we go. And Andrew, do the honors.
Been away. We need to screen record or?
Oh yeah, right. Fuck. I gotta remember these things. Okay, screen recorder. Start. And 3, 2, 1. That.
Let's see what we got.
And on the next episode of the Infernal Archive, we will be watching the film Thesis from 1996. No idea what this fucking movie is, but I must have thought it sounded interesting. So we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.